The fuel price increase this week has hit consumers and businesses really hard. Petrol rose by over R2 and diesel increased by over R1. For reaction, I'm joined by the National Taxi Alliance spokesperson, Theo Malele and Khathutshelo Mufamadi, Droppa founder and CEO, who joins me in the studio. Khathu, very good afternoon. Thanks so much for joining us. Now, talk to us about the impact of fuel pricing on your pricing model.
Basically, on our pricing model, fuel price contribute 20 to 40% of the total cost of the delivery. And the recent increases, dating back to October, it's around 50% fuel price increase. So it means that on our pricing, 60% of the cost is now servicing just an overhead. So in the logistics industry, as you know, the margins are very small. You make like 12% margin on a delivery. So this fuel price basically is just keeping us in a survival of the fittest kind of situation. Hopefully, it will go down in the near future.
Theo Malele, you're speaking to us via our phone line. Obviously, the impact of fuel has had a similar impact to what we've just talked about. What is it looking like for the National Taxi Alliance? Have you passed this on to consumers already?
Well, it is good afternoon to you and to the viewers out there at home. It is very, very terrible in that most members are beginning to lose their vehicles because they are unable to meet their financial monthly obligations. And we are still to pass this on to the commuters. But what we would want to, impress upon government, that they should actually step up and look into this aspect of, assisting the largest, public transport mover. This, equates to, if you're using a petrol-propelled vehicle, you're talking about plus 6,600 rands per month, which in essence is around 303.75 more that we pay on a daily basis. And with diesel vehicles, it's about 137 rands and 50 cents per day. And, that equates to 3,025 rands per month. This is what we are about to lose. So basically, the fuel price increases will have to be effected if government does not actually step up and stop abdicating its responsibility. And, and safe to say, we probably could go around 25%, which is a percentage that the fuel price has increased by before, the current, fuel price increases.
Now, how often do you raise your prices? Do you raise your prices as soon as the government raises their price on fuel?
No. Like every other business, we were supposed to be, raising our tariffs on an annual basis. But because we're servicing the poorest of the poor, we are mindful of that fact. So we try and absorb, most of these costs. But then with the recent, fuel price increases, we are left with no other, option other than to increase these fares. And we also will be, lobbying passengers to stand with us, organized labor as well, so that we put pressure to the government.
Now, Khathu, coming to you, your business is broken down into three segments, which is logistics, e-commerce, and e-hailing. Now, when you have increases like this in the cost of fuel, which contributes a significant portion to your cost structure, which has impacted the most, and how so?
The biggest impact is on the e-hailing part because that is our biggest revenue streams. And most of the clients, they actually prefer that platform. But luckily in some of our B2B clients, we've got what we call surge pricing, where they understand the uncertainty and the increases during the period of the contract. But not all of them agree to that because some of them are just small, medium enterprises who don't have flexibility of adjusting now and then. So at the end of the day, the e-hailing business is the one that is impacted too much, but also the costs have to be passed through to the customer at the end of the day.
Now, we're speaking to Theo Malele, who says that they haven't passed on that cost just yet to the consumer. From your end, have you done the same? Have you absorbed it, or have you already passed it on?
Our annual increase is actually in the end of June, so we will be adjusting accordingly.
So, again, do you absorb these fuel costs that we've had? We've had several
yes, so
in the last few months. So do you absorb them and then only raise your costs at a particular time?
Yes, so basically we have stopped them since last year, June. So right now we're going to adjust dating back to June last year.
And what is that increase looking like as a percentage, if you will?
I think as a percentage, you look at around 50 to 60% increase per kilometer.
Gee, so that's pretty significant.
Yeah, it's quite significant, yes.
Theo Malele, coming back to you, I have in studio Khathutshelo Mufamadi, who's Droppa founder and CEO, and again, similar to you, he's in the transport services business, and he's looking at a significant increase of 50 to 60%. Now, I can only imagine that once you increase your prices, there's going to be some consumer resistance. If so, how will it manifest in the business?
You know, very well, consumer resistance may be there, but we have done everything in our power in order to try and circumvent, this tariff increases. But because government is obligating its responsibility, we are a business, and we are left with no option other than to increase our tariffs. But it is also funny, though, that some of the fast-moving consumer items, if you look at the basket of products that is daily consumed by communities, they too are increased, but you will never hear people, cry foul over an increase in a loaf of bread or in, chicken, rice, maize meal, oil.
Why is this so, do you think?
I beg your pardon?
Why do you think this is so?
It is because we do not even hear, these voices coming through, the very mediums of communication, that is your good self, televisions and radio. But every time as an industry, we talk about effecting price increases, there are complaints that, coming out there. Very well. These people are right. They're not supposed to be spending more than 10% of their disposable income. But now they are almost getting to 60%. But whose responsibility is it to look after the citizenry from moving from one point to the other? Obviously, that's government's responsibility, and the government is just, being lazy and ineptitude, I think, in actually taking, its responsibility to fruition.
Now, my final question before we let you go, Theo Malele, have you had a conversation with government? And if so, what does that conversation sound like? Because if you look at the cost of fuel across the region, there are many countries that do not process, certainly, fuel and have to import it. And what you find is that the cost of fuel in other parts of the region are a lot lower than South Africa that has refineries, for instance.
Yes, we have spoken to government, and government seems to, this communique seems to be falling on deaf ears. Yes, we understand that, the geopolitics are at play. But if you look at the taxes that have been attached to fuel, or all these levies, we can still do without them. I mean, the very country, our neighboring countries, as you rightfully said, purchase fuel from us, but resell it at a much lower margin, primarily because they don't have all these frills attached to fuel.
And Theo Malele is the National Taxi Alliance spokesperson, and with me in the studio was Khathutshelo Mufamadi, Droppa founder and CEO. Thank you so much for your time. And then we were talking to us about the impact that the rising cost of fuel is going to have on their consumers.